The music swelled. Glasses clinked. But at the long, glittering table tucked inside Rome's most exclusive rooftop restaurant, one chair was missing. Hers. Ivy stood frozen for a moment, then heard it. Oops, Lennon grinned, lifting his glass. Guess we miscounted. No apology. No seat offered. Just a sea of smug glances and silence, sharpened by champagne and a skyline glittering with ancient domes. She smiled. Then turned, walked away from the table. And quietly activated her revenge. What happens when the woman you try to erase is the one who built the stage you're standing on? Don't blink. The reckoning has already begun. Rome shimmered below like a tapestry of gold and shadow. The restaurant, perched atop a five-star palazzo near the Spanish Steps, glowed under a canopy of Edison bulbs and olive trees in sculpted planters. Every detail, from the flickering candlelight to the fresh lavender folded into the napkins, was flawless. But only on the surface. Ivy Wilder stood at the edge of the open-air terrace, her heels barely tapping the marble floor. From here, she could see the table, the grand, glittering table that stretched down the center of the rooftop like a runway. 16 chairs. 16 plates. 16 carefully handwritten name cards. Not one had her name. She blinked once, letting her gaze pass over the scene like a director watching her set come alive, only to realize she'd been cut from the script. This must be a mistake, she thought. It has to be. She stepped closer, her voice low but steady. Excuse me, Marco. She called to the maître d', her tone controlled. The man in a black Armani vest turned, blinking nervously. Signora. There's no place card for me. I don't see my name. Before he could stammer a response, another voice cut through the warm Roman twilight. Oops. She turned. Lennon stood at the far end of the table, one hand in his pocket, the other raising a glass of Dom Perignon. Guess we miscounted. His smile was effortless. Cold. Practiced. Ivy felt something shift beneath her ribs. A flicker of heat, of humiliation. She looked around the table. Vivian didn't even turn her head. She continued speaking to a friend, her voice feathery and amused. Oh, she's probably just overthinking it, as usual. Juliet leaned into Spencer's shoulder, eyes on Ivy. Maybe it's a sign. Spencer snorted. Should've RSVP'd harder. Nate sipped his Barolo and stared into the distance. Elise offered a tight, apologetic smile, mouthing something Ivy couldn't quite read. Sorry, maybe. But the silence around her was louder than words. No one stood. No one moved a chair. No one offered her a place. Ivy swallowed, forcing down the lump rising in her throat. Not here. Not in front of them. Not now. She lifted her chin and gave Lennon a long, unreadable look. Of course, she said softly. An honest mistake. You're being dramatic, he replied, chuckling. Why not just stand for a bit? Walk around. You love mingling. There it was. That final twist. You're not one of us. You never were. Ivy exhaled slowly. One hand slipped into her clutch, fingers brushing past her lipstick, her keys, until they found her phone. She turned, the murmurs behind her already rising again. She felt their stares on her back, mocking, satisfied. She didn't look back. Not even when Juliet whispered, "Guess she's finally leaving." At the edge of the rooftop terrace, where the music blurred into the hum of Rome's nighttime skyline, Ivy tapped her screen. Her thumb hovered over the command she had drafted days ago. Just in case. She pressed send. Somewhere, staff phones buzzed. Contracts shifted. Orders rerouted. She stood alone under a canopy of string lights and Roman air, her heart beating steady, not with panic, but with purpose. Let's play. Long before Rome. Before the missing chair. There was Boston. Anne Ivy. At 29, she was already a name that circulated in rooms filled with oil paintings, old money, and scandalous gossip. Quinn Company. Events had gone from a dream born in a cramped Beacon Hill apartment to a powerhouse brand orchestrating the kind of galas that made their way into town country. It was elegance without apology. Precision without warmth. Ivy herself was the blueprint. No partners. No investors. No family money. Just her. Clients whispered about her presence, how she walked into a space and somehow made everyone sit up straighter. She wasn't warm. She wasn't charming. But she was unforgettable. And that night, at a charity gala hosted inside the MFA, she wore steel grey Valentino and a gaze that cut through the noise. Her company had managed the event. The patrons ate, drank, donated, and marveled at how seamlessly the night unfolded. Until Knox Wilder walked in. "You made this look like a movie set," he said, appearing beside her like a shadow. His tux was classic. His jawline, sharper than it had any right to be. Ivy barely glanced at him. "It's a gala. Not theater." "Right," he grinned. "But you don't look like someone who just organized all this. You look like someone who owns it." That caught her attention. He was different from the usual heirs and hedge fund bores. Lennon had charm, but it wasn't loud. He wasn't trying to impress her, he was intrigued. And more than that, he was persistent. He sent her flowers the next morning. Then vintage wine. Then tickets to a ballet she once mentioned in passing. By month 3, he was taking her to private dinners on rooftops overlooking the Charles River. By month 5, he introduced her to his family. That was when the temperature changed. Vivian Wilder greeted her with a tight smile and air kisses. "So you're the girl from events?" "Quinn Company," Ivy replied calmly. Vivian blinked. "Of course. The event girl. Charles, didn't I say she had a very sharp look?" Charles Sr. didn't shake her hand. He just said, "How's the economy treating you?" Like he was speaking to a barista. Juliet assessed her like a purse at an outlet store. Spencer smirked through the whole brunch, nudging Juliet under the table. Nate barely spoke. Elise, polite but pale, looked at Ivy like someone watching a tightrope walker, hoping she wouldn't fall, but sure she would. Later that night, as they walked down Commonwealth Avenue, Ivy asked, "Are they always like that?" Lennon slipped his arm around her. "You're not like them. That's why I want you." She stopped walking. Looked up at him. "No, Lennon," she said. "That's why they'll never want me." He kissed her anyway. Like that would be enough. And for a while, it was. Until the wedding. Until the whispers. Until the first time Vivian called her that event girl during brunch with the Davenports, as if Ivy wasn't 2 seats away. Until Charles Sr. handed Lennon a list of potential business partnerships and told Ivy, "You might want to focus on centerpieces and seating charts." Until Juliet, half drunk, laughed at a holiday party, "Honestly, Ivy, you should send Mom an invoice. This family's your biggest client." Ivy smiled through it all. She held her ground, sharper than crystal, colder than the silver spoons they all grew up with. But somewhere deep down, something began to calcify. A knowing. She would never be one of them. But one day, they would wish she had stayed just the event girl. The first crack in the mirror didn't come with a scream. It came with a ping. Ivy had just returned from a floral tasting in Milan, selecting roses flown in from Ecuador for an upcoming Roman embassy wedding. Her inbox was overflowing with vendor updates, floor plans, and press inquiries. She sat in her penthouse office near the Piazza Navona, sleek, glass-walled, silent, running through RSVPs for the Wilder anniversary weekend. She was tired, focused, and still foolish enough to believe she was safe. Lennon's iPad was on the desk, carelessly left open. Notifications blinking like low-level alarms. She wasn't snooping. She hadn't meant to look. But the name Sloane Mercer lit up the screen like a live wire. Her stomach dropped. Then it dropped further as the message preview appeared. Can't wait until we don't have to hide anymore. She won't see it coming. Our family finally begins Sunday night. Love you. Ivy didn't move. Didn't breathe. Her pulse throbbed in her ears. One tap. Then another. The thread unraveled like rot beneath silk. Photos. Secret meetings in Madrid. A doctor's appointment confirmation. A sonogram. 12 weeks along. And then, the final nail. A message from Lennon. She'll be too focused on the Rome dinner to notice. We'll go public once the weekend ends. She'll be humiliated, but she'll land on her feet. She always does. Ivy stared at the screen. A quiet, volcanic silence building inside her. He wasn't just leaving her. He was planning the moment like it was one of her events. Precision. Timing. Public optics. He was using her own language against her. She opened the drawer to her right. Pulled out the slim, black folio marked confidential, Roma Palazzo Sant'Elena. Inside were the full schematics of the dinner, suppliers, staff, seating, lighting cues. All of it organized under Quinn Company. All of it under her name. That's when she remembered the file she stumbled across a week earlier, half open, slipped beneath Lennon's Mont Blanc portfolio. She hadn't looked closely then. Too distracted. Too trusting. Now, she went back for it. Buried behind a stack of shareholder documents was a crisp folder labeled simply Dissolution Agreement, K. Wilder. Her hands trembled, but her face didn't. The draft was brutal. No marital assets. No claim to real estate. An NDA clause so tight it could choke her legacy. And the effective date? Sunday night. Right after the toast. Right after the chair mishap. She stood, gripping the edge of her desk, the leather folder still in hand. Her reflection in the office glass stared back, flawless, controlled, lethal. They thought this was checkmate. They had no idea they'd just opened the game. She picked up her phone. Dialed a number she hadn't used in years. Hello. Is this Andre Delacroix? A pause. Then a sharp inhale. Ivy. I didn't think I'd ever hear from you again. I need a forensic audit. Private. Fast. I'll pay triple. On who? Lennon. And the Wilder Family Trust. A silence bloomed on the line. You're going to war. No, she said, her voice like cut stone. I'm rewriting the invitation list. Saturday. Rome. The restaurant was a masterpiece, tucked high above Via Condotti, hidden from tourists, but known to every socialite who mattered. Glass walls revealed the city like a painting, domes glowing under twilight, the Colosseum a faint ghost in the distance. Chandeliers dripped like molten gold. Waiters moved with balletic grace. And at the heart of it all, Ivy Wilder was the perfect hostess. Signora, the truffle risotto, is it after the music begins, or before? Ivy turned, her smile precise. After. Let the anticipation build. Always. She moved like a conductor through a symphony, her gown a column of ivory silk, her earrings vintage Bulgari. She nodded to the maître d', adjusted a floral display by exactly 3 inches, whispered a note to the violinists. It was flawless. And it was about to burn. Because beneath the poise and polish, she had spent the past 48 hours orchestrating something far more lethal than an anniversary dinner. She had made calls, sent encrypted files, commissioned 3 separate firms to trace money into shell accounts scattered across the Caymans and Geneva. And what came back? The Wilder family was a castle of credit and illusion. Vivian's diamonds. Leased. Charles' SRS accounts. Over-leveraged. The villa in Lake Como. Remortgaged. Twice. Lennon. Borrowing against a trust that barely existed anymore. Ivy didn't just know their secrets. She now owned the vault. And yet, as she lifted her glass during the opening toast, her voice didn't tremble. To family, she said, looking directly at Vivian. The ones who show us what legacy really means. Polite applause. Smirks. Vivian offered a nod so thin it could slice paper. Juliet leaned toward Spencer. She's laying it on thick. Spencer grinned. Trying too hard, as always. Ivy let it slide. For now. The sun dipped lower. Dinner was called. The table, long, gleaming, adorned with olive branches and white orchids, awaited beneath a canopy of glass and stars. Ivy walked toward it, heels clicking softly on Roman marble. And paused. Her name wasn't there. Again. 16 place cards. 16 chairs. And 1 carefully omitted identity. She stood still. A tremor of confusion rippled through the air like distant thunder. Vivian looked up, amused. Oh, for heaven's sake, she sighed. Not this again. Juliet didn't look up from her wine. Seriously. She's acting like the seat matters. Then Lennon. The same practiced half smile. The same blade hidden in charm. Relax, he said. We just ran out. You've been on your feet all night anyway. Ivy let the silence bloom. She stepped closer, placed one manicured hand on the back of Lennon's chair, and let her eyes sweep across the table, one face at a time. Then, gently, like silk unraveling. Seems I'm not part of this family after all. Knives froze. Forks hovered mid-air. The violinists faltered. Lennon's jaw clenched. Ivy, don't. But she already had. She turned. And walked away. Not in anger. Not in panic. Just grace. Grace that hurt more than any scream could. The music behind her swelled again, trying to cover the static rising in her wake. Waiters glanced at each other. Guests whispered. Vivian sipped her champagne, though her hand trembled ever so slightly. Ivy didn't look back. Not even when Juliet hissed, "She's doing it again." Making it about her. At the far end of the terrace, Ivy reached the glass railing overlooking the city. She pulled out her phone. And pressed send. 2 hours after she walked away from the table, Ivy sat at a quiet cafe tucked into a narrow Roman alley, just off Piazza Farnese. The kind of place locals kept secret. Her shawl was draped loosely over her shoulders. No diamonds. No theatrics. Just a warm espresso cooling beside her and the glow of her laptop screen. A text popped up. "He's looking for you. Everyone is." She didn't respond. Instead, she logged into her Quinn Company dashboard, the nerve center of the entire evening. Everything routed through her. Every agreement. Every contract. Every power play hidden beneath flowers and wine pairings. She began. Palazzo catering, cancel. Terrace lighting, cancel. Private quartet, cancel. Sommelier-led wine sequence, cancel. Every element had been secured under her authority. Every vendor paid through her firm. And now she was withdrawing. She hit send to vendors. Then, one last message to the staff group chat. Effective immediately, Quinn Company withdraws all services from the Wilder anniversary dinner. No exceptions. Hold unless directly paid in full. She shut her laptop. And let the city do what it does best, watch and whisper. Back at the rooftop restaurant, it began slowly. Like a light drizzle before the downpour. The bartender stopped mid-shake. "Excuse me, Signora. We've been informed your event is no longer covered. Billing is now private." A server removed the amuse-bouch tray halfway down the table. "Apologies. We've been asked to pause all service until payment is resolved." Vivian blinked. "Excuse me." Juliet looked up from her phone, face drained. "Why is the private gallery tour cancelled? My confirmation link is dead." Spencer refreshed his app. "I just got a refund notice from the rooftop violinist. With a message, service terminated by client authority." Then the Metro D returned. He looked deeply uncomfortable. "Mrs. Wilder," he began, "formal now. Unless the outstanding balance of 42,000 is settled, we must begin dismantling the private setup." Vivian straightened. Her voice cut like ice. "That's impossible. This entire event was through Quinn Company." "Correct," the Metro D nodded. "But Quinn Company has just revoked its support. You'll need to provide direct payment. Or..." He gestured delicately toward the floral arch and suspended chandeliers. "We begin disassembly." Vivian turned sharply toward Lennon. "Where is Ivy?" "She walked out," he muttered, pulling out his phone. "She wouldn't dare." But she had. Moments later, the florist arrived, not with roses, but with an invoice and a removal order. Behind him, a moving crew entered with velvet gloves and quiet urgency. They began stripping the decor, orchids, olive branches, centerpieces, under the stunned gaze of the Roman elite. The violinists packed up mid-sonata. Waiters rolled away the champagne cart. Photographers unplugged their soft lights. "Is this part of the entertainment?" someone whispered. "No," said another. "This is Ivy." Juliet's phone buzzed again. She looked, then gasped. She posted a vendor notice. "Public. All of them." Spencer leaned over. His face turned pale. "There's a live tweet thread. #Wilder unraveling is trending in Milan. Oh my God." A waiter returned to the table with quiet finality. "Without immediate payment, we are required to begin removing all food and service." Vivian's jaw dropped. She reached up and unclasped her Cartier necklace, 4 rows of antique cut diamonds. "This," she hissed to the Metro D. "This should cover it." The man hesitated. "We would still need written authorization and a temporary transfer of." "I'll sign it," she snapped. Across the table, Juliet sat frozen, her mascara streaked. "She's really doing it," she whispered. "She's burning it all down." Lennon stormed away from the table, phone ringing in his hand. "Ivy, pick up. Pick up." But Ivy was gone. Not hiding. Just out of reach. And for the first time, they couldn't spin it. The rooftop, once glowing with curated elegance, now looked like a battlefield. Half-cleared tables. Bare walls. Staff in quiet motion. Guests in disbelief. And the Wilder family. They sat in the wreckage. Brought down not by scandal, but by one woman's silence. And a cancellation button. Then, she appeared. Ivy stepped through the wrought iron gates of the rooftop terrace like she'd never left. The moonlight caught the edge of her ivory silk shawl. Her walk. Impossibly calm. Every heel click a verdict. At her side, a man in a charcoal suit, lean, composed, and carrying a sleek leather briefcase. And just like that, the storm began again. Ivy. Lennon was the first to see her. His voice cracked across the space like lightning. Where the hell have you been? She didn't flinch. Didn't answer. Vivian rose from her half-dismantled table, pearls askew, lipstick smudged. Her voice was shrill and trembling. You dare ruin my anniversary. Humiliate this family in front of Rome's entire elite. Ivy walked to the center of the terrace, stopping exactly where the spotlight met the broken floral arch. Her expression. Surgical calm. I didn't ruin your night, Vivian, she said, her voice smooth as glass. I did my job. Vivian blinked. You're what? Ivy nodded slowly. I was hired to plan an event. And I did. She tilted her head. But then the contract was terminated. By YOU. Vivian screeched. By Quinn Company, Ivy replied. Which, as you never seem to fully grasp, is not just a logo. It's me. Juliet scoffed, arms crossed. This is pathetic. Ivy's gaze slid to her like a scalpel. Say that again when you're auctioning handbags to cover your taxes. Juliet's mouth opened. Then closed. Lennon stepped forward, hands raised. You think this changes anything? You've made your scene. It's over. Ivy turned to the man beside her. Mr. Harrow. The lawyer stepped forward, opened the briefcase with a click that sounded like a gavel. Inside, documents, statements, crisp files stacked like lined-up detonators. Ivy picked up the first folder and held it out to Lennon. This, she said evenly, is evidence of your concealed assets, your offshore accounts, and every trust transfer made without disclosure. Lennon's face drained. You went through my files. I protected myself, she said coldly. After I saw your little love letters to Sloane Mercer. Congratulations, by the way. Gasps. A wine glass cracked. Someone at the back whispered, she's pregnant. Ivy turned to Vivian next, lifting another file. And this is your liquidity report. You're 3 months from bankruptcy unless someone bails you out. Aspen. Gone. Villa Como. Leverage to the teeth. Cartier necklace. Leased under Spencer's name. Vivian's voice faltered. Where did you get this? I'm good at what I do. No one moved. Then Ivy reached into her clutch and pulled out a sealed envelope. She walked to Lennon and held it out. He hesitated. What is this? Freedom, she said. He opened it. Inside, divorce papers. Signed. Final. Dated today. Lennon's voice cracked. You're leaving me. Ivy met his eyes, steady, unflinching. You already left. I'm just putting it in writing. Ivy, he stepped forward. But she stepped back. I don't want your money. I don't want your name. I want my life back. He tried again. We can fix this. She cut him off, quiet but razor sharp. I choose freedom. Not your apology. Not your fortune. Just the part of me you never truly owned. Then she turned and walked away. Past the bare tables. Past the stunned guests. Past the dying remnants of a family who never thought they'd be left behind. She didn't look back. Because this time, she never needed to. 3 weeks later, the headlines spread like wildfire, each more deliciously brutal than the last. The fall of the Wilder legacy, divorce, debt, and the dinner that exposed it all. Rome reckoning. How a chairless knight took down an empire. Wilder dynasty unravels in public, and she never said a word. Ivy never gave a statement. She didn't need to. The press did it for her. Investigations opened. Auditors swept into family offices. Investors ghosted the Wilder name like a bad bet. Vivian was photographed leaving a financial crimes tribunal in Milan, her face hidden behind oversized sunglasses and shame. Charles Sr. vanished from public view. Juliet deleted her social media after commenters flooded her photos with chair emojis and the hashtag #eventgirlwins. Anne Lennon. Well, Sloane Mercer gave birth to a daughter in November. The wedding followed 2 months later. The photos leaked. Plastic chairs. A creased tent. A 2-tier cake already sweating in the Roman sun. No custom linens. No dome. No orchestra. Just bad angles and worse lighting. The headlines didn't hold back. Budget bride, scandal groom, Knox Wilder marries former mistress in discount ceremony. From Como to coupons. She's no Ivy. Ivy didn't smile when she saw the pictures. She didn't need to. Because by then, 1 year later, Amalfi Coast. The villa was modern, stark white, carved into the cliffs like a secret. No gilt mirrors. No chandeliers. Just endless sea, rolling hills, and silence so pure it hummed. Ivy stood on the balcony in a silk robe, barefoot, a tablet in her hand. Below, waves curled gently along the shore. Behind her, a team buzzed, floral samples, lighting diagrams, drone shot schedules. Tomorrow was the wedding of an A-list Hollywood couple. Vogue exclusive. A 7-figure event. And she was the architect of it all. Quinn Company had gone global, Monaco, Kyoto, Dubai, Sao Paulo. Her name was whispered like a spell in every luxury circle. Clients waited months. Celebrities begged for her signature. Billionaires adjusted their timelines to fit her calendar. She was no longer the event girl. She was the event. Her phone buzzed. A message from her assistant. Bride's asking if you'll stay for the ceremony. She typed back. Of course. I have the best seat in the house. And this time, it had her name on it. It was never just about the chair. Not really. It wasn't about the insult, or the smirks, or the way they looked through her like she was set dressing. It was about what they never understood. That a woman like Ivy Wilder didn't need a seat at their table. Because she'd learned, painfully, gloriously, that the missing chair wasn't a rejection. It was a release. An invitation to build something better. Her own table. Her own rules. Her own world. And the guest list. By her. Design.